This is the story of a Hollywood tragedy that rocked the entertainment world and forced hard questions about mental illness, addiction, and how far a family can go to stop a crisis. On December 14, 2025, the son of legendary filmmaker Rob Reiner was arrested and charged with murdering his parents, and his defense is shaping up to hinge on one thing: whether severe psychiatric illness left him unable to understand what he was doing. This isn't just a celebrity crime headline, it's a look at a family's long, public fight with addiction and mental health, one they even put on screen, ending in violence and now being argued over in court. This is the story of a Hollywood tragedy that rocked the entertainment world and forced hard questions about mental illness, addiction, and how far a family can go to stop a crisis. On December 14, 2025, the son of legendary filmmaker Rob Reiner was arrested and charged with murdering his parents, and his defense is shaping up to hinge on one thing: whether severe psychiatric illness left him unable to understand what he was doing. This isn't just a celebrity crime headline, it's a look at a family's long, public fight with addiction and mental health, one they even put on screen, ending in violence and now being argued over in court. Before the crime and the defense, you have to know who Rob and Michelle Reiner were. The victims matter in this story, not as footnotes, but as people with a full life behind the headlines. Rob Reiner was a Hollywood fixture. Born in 1947, he became one of the best-known filmmakers of his era. The Princess Bride, When Harry Met Sally, Stand By Me, Misery, A Few Good Men. Many of his films became cultural reference points, and several are preserved in the National Film Registry. He also built an acting career, with his most famous early role on All in the Family. When he died on December 14, 2025, he was 78, and he'd spent decades shaping American pop culture. Michelle Singer Reiner had her own career and reputation. She was a photographer, a producer, and a political activist. She worked in entertainment leadership roles, was nominated for an Emmy for Albert Brooks' Defending My Life, and was involved with Castle Rock Entertainment. She also co-founded the American Foundation for Equal Rights and became a visible advocate for LGBTQ+ rights during the Proposition 8 fight in California. Rob and Michelle met on the set of When Harry Met Sally in 1988, where Michelle was working as a still photographer. Their relationship became part of Hollywood lore, including the story that Rob rewrote the film's ending after falling in love. They married in 1989 and stayed together for 36 years. They had 3 children: Jake, a TV reporter in Houston; Romy, an actress and writer in Los Angeles; and Nick, the youngest. On December 14, 2025, Romy found her parents' bodies inside their Brentwood home around 3:30 p.m. Both had died from multiple sharp force injuries. Within hours, police arrested their son Nick at a subway station near USC, roughly 14 to 20 miles from the family home. To understand Nick Reiner, you have to confront a long record of addiction and serious mental illness. That's not a free pass. It's the center of why his lawyer is pointing toward a mental state defense. Nick Reiner was born in 1993. By age 15, he entered rehab for the first time. Over the next several years, he cycled through at least 17 treatment programs by age 22. 17. Reports describe severe addiction involving methamphetamine and heroin, with stretches of homelessness. Rob and Michelle didn't hide their family struggle. In 2015, when Nick was 22, Rob directed Being Charlie, which he co-wrote with Nick. The movie drew from their real relationship and focused on addiction and family conflict. Rob summed up his parenting stance with a line that became widely quoted: "I'd rather you hate me than be dead in the street." The message was blunt. He was willing to be the villain if it kept his son alive. In interviews around that time, Rob also described the family's mindset in plain terms. They were desperate, trying what professionals advised and watching it fail again and again. By the time of the killings, Nick was 32 and had been living in his parents' guest house for nearly 5 years. That setup may have been meant to keep him stable and close to support. It also meant daily access, daily tension, and no real distance if things spiraled. Several years before December 2025, Nick had been diagnosed with schizophrenia, according to reporting. That matters because it puts this beyond addiction alone. Schizophrenia can involve delusions, paranoia, disorganized organized thinking and breaks from reality, especially when medication changes or stops. And that's one of the most alarming details in the reporting. In the 3 to 4 weeks before the murders, Nick's schizophrenia medication was adjusted or changed. Sources described a sharp shift afterward, out of his head, erratic, dangerous. Those aren't clinical terms, but they paint a picture of someone coming apart fast. The night before the murders, the Reiners attended an exclusive Christmas party hosted by Conan O'Brien at his Pacific Palisades home. What happened there may become a key snapshot of Nick's condition right before the killings.
Multiple accounts describe Nick as unsettling at the party. Witnesses said he acted antisocial, asked guests if they were famous, and behaved in ways that made people uncomfortable. One report says he stared at Bill Hader during a private conversation, long enough to feel aggressive, then walked away. He was also dressed casually in a sweatshirt at an upscale event, which may not mean much by itself, but fits the broader picture of someone out of step with the room. At some point, the night turned into a loud argument between Rob and Nick. Witnesses said Rob seemed worried that Nick's mental health was getting worse. People close to the gathering described Nick as erratic enough that it affected the whole party.
The family apologized to Conan O'Brien and left. Public reports aren't clear on where Nick went after that, or whether he returned home with his parents. What is reported is that around 4 a.m. on Sunday, December 14th, Nick checked into the Pierside Santa Monica Hotel using his own credit card. Staff described him as tweaked out, suggesting intoxication or an altered mental state. Staff also said he didn't appear injured or bloody at check-in. Hours later, when staff entered the room, they found the shower full of blood on the bed, and sheets covering the windows. Yet earlier, there were no visible injuries or blood on him. Back in Brentwood, Romy discovered her parents' bodies around 3:30 p.m. The medical examiner has not publicly confirmed the exact time of death, but reporting suggests the deaths likely occurred in the early morning hours, based on the condition of the bodies. Police arrested Nick later that day at a subway station near USC. Reports say he did not resist. On December 16th, 2 days after the arrest, the Los Angeles County District Attorney filed charges, 2 counts of first-degree murder with special circumstances. The special circumstance allegation, multiple victims, raises the stakes. It opens the door to life without parole or the death penalty. Deputy District Attorney Habib Balian is leading the prosecution. He's handled major cases before, including involvement in the Menendez brothers prosecution and the Robert Durst case, both trials where motive, intent, and mental state became central fights. As of January 7, 2026, the DA's office has not said whether it will seek the death penalty. LA County District Attorney Nathan Hochman has also urged people not to rush to judgment, language that suggests prosecutors may be weighing evidence that isn't simple, or a situation that doesn't fit a clean narrative. Prosecutors have described this as among the hardest cases they've dealt with, in part because the suspect and victims are immediate family. Nick Reiner's defense attorney is Alan Jackson, a well-known lawyer in high-profile cases. He represented Harvey Weinstein in the Los Angeles case that ended with convictions and a 16-year sentence. He defended Kevin Spacey in a case that was dismissed. He also represented Karen Reed in Massachusetts, where she was acquitted after multiple trials. Jackson is a former LA County prosecutor and now a partner at Worksman, Jackson & Quinn. At Nick's first court appearance on December 17, 2025, Jackson gave a statement that signaled where this is headed. This is a devastating tragedy that has befallen the Reiner family. There are very, very complex and serious issues that are associated with this case. These need to be thoroughly but very carefully dealt with and examined and looked at and analyzed. In plain terms, that reads like a mental state defense, most likely an insanity defense. In California, the insanity standard asks whether at the time of the crime the defendant either didn't understand the nature and quality of the act or didn't understand it was morally or legally wrong because of a mental disease or defect. Given the reported schizophrenia diagnosis and the recent medication change, Jackson's angle seems clear. Nick isn't expected to argue, "I didn't do it." He's expected to argue, "I wasn't capable of forming the intent required for first-degree murder," or that he couldn't grasp right from wrong in that moment. That's the desperate bid, shifting the fight from identity and evidence to mental legal responsibility.
On January 7, 2026, today, Nick Reiner was scheduled for arraignment, where he would enter a formal plea. He remains in custody at Twin Towers Correctional Facility, held without bail and reportedly kept in solitary confinement. Key facts are still missing. The medical examiner has not publicly confirmed the official time of death. Toxicology results have not been released, which could matter a lot if drugs or alcohol were involved, and the exact psychiatric medications and what changes were made in the weeks before haven't been made public, leaving the defense's medication argument hard to evaluate from the outside. The prosecution also hasn't announced whether it will seek the death penalty, another sign that this case is still taking shape.
This case sits at the intersection of family, illness, and the limits of intervention. A father spent years trying to keep his son alive. A family fought addiction and psychiatric instability in public and in private. And on December 14th, 2025, it ended in the most violent way possible. Now the courtroom question isn't only what happened, it's whether Nick Reiner's mental state at that moment makes him legally responsible for it.